Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Amon's Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves. Let's start with Zara because I know she likes going first. Zara?
That is a tradition you started, Bill. Hi, everyone. I'm Zara Altair, and I write web content.
Doc, would you go next?
I certainly will. Doc Sheldon here, Intrinsic Value SEO.
And formerly of Deep Sea SEO Con?
Deep SEO Con. Not Deep Sea, Deep SEO.
Deep SEO. Thomas?
Thomas Sickle, founder of Blueprint Marketing, MTI PolyX.
Terry?
Terry Van Horn, Toronto, Ontario, retired.
The person I was just on the phone with before I got here was from Winnipeg. And he said he doesn't have too many Canadians to talk to. I said, you know anybody from Toronto?
Probably. They don't talk. Toronto's like New York City.
Well, he was saying, no, they were all just talking about keywords. He doesn't like talking to them because they can't get off the keyword subject. I said, Terry's got a few more bags of tricks in his bag than that. Steve.
Steve Grinzer with Steam Driven Media and also formerly Deep SEO Con, which hopefully in 11 months and 3 weeks we'll be doing again.
So it's not done. It's just done for this year.
It's done for this year. We may do something on smaller scale over the course of the next year. We still have to talk about it, but first I have to get all the speaker videos uploaded, edited and uploaded.
Become officially an entity that people have heard of.
Yes.
And I'm Bill Slosky of SEO by the Sea and Director of SEO Research for Go Fish Digital. Yeah, that entity thing is interesting. You develop a website, you make your entity home. It's like Batman having Batcave. You have to get it associated with you.
Yeah.
Entity home.
It's something that Jason Baynard writes about a lot.
Yeah, he does.
So, looks like there's quite a few changes recently with, well, not quite. Google said that no technical changes will actually make a difference to search, but they're pretty wrong.
Decor web
That's
update?
like saying not putting keywords on your page won't necessarily make it.
Or changing the robust.txt file to disallow won't do anything.
I wrote on Twitter yesterday that keyword density and keyword frequency were two different things. Yep. I had some guy respond that I was really new at SEO and didn't know very much.
Are you serious? That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, he kind of branded himself.
I think it was Clown Day on Twitter because the clowns are coming out.
Is that one of those instances where you can legitimately say, do you know who I am?
It is, I think.
I didn't even bother. I didn't go there. It's like I pioneered and invented more SEO than you'll ever know, clown.
Yeah. I find a lot of these questions just aren't put in very good context. Like, no, doing one technical thing on your site won't improve it, but doing a whole bunch of things definitely will.
Absolutely.
Well,
one technical thing will.
Is that technical thing removing the no index in the robots?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's a way you can change it immediately is take the no index tag off of every page.
Uncheck that box in WordPress that says I do not want my site indexed.
Right.
Oh, right.
That's why I have a problem. Like that misleads some SEOs, and they can look at that and say, "Oh, no matter what I do with technical SEO, it's not going to help."
The number of technical SEO problems I've seen, it's a question of fixing them. And the more you fix of those, the more likely it is somebody will get indexed.
Exactly.
So when you see canonical links on a page that point to the developer development server that's login only, you've got to have them change those to the right canonical pages. And it's small steps like that. The more of them you make, the more likely it is the site will get indexed.
That's absolutely true.
Well,
Especially
it certainly. Go ahead.
if you're merging sites together, going into Search Console, make sure all the redirects, making sure all 301 redirects are mapped, making sure that the that Google Search Console knows which sites point to what, so it can point the canonicals that way. Those are all very technical things that I know make a difference.
I had a client who had a very unique approach to SEO. So the first thing they did was find the next biggest competitor, purchase them, take over the website. 6 months later, they found the next biggest competitor, purchased them, took over the website. Then they were trying to merge all three websites together.
Mistake.
Actually, I just got done doing that, and it was awesome results. 24% more traffic than all three combined. But
they didn't want to change the product names that were the big sellers from the competitors.
Oh, okay.
They have brands that you don't want to lose. That's correct.
Yeah.
But even so, when you merge three sites, if three of those, say you had a page on shoes, if all three were ranking, if you merge them, you'll only get one page ranking.
And it was a very specific niche market. It was like the plugs on serial cords as security devices. You had to put the
think that having multiple sites, Google doesn't like it. That's so old. It's like ancient.
No.
A long time ago, Google didn't like if you had 3 or 4 sites. In the same
they were
thing.
tied to.
Now they could care less.
This is all.
Not being for a long time.
All three sites I can say were in HR. That's all I can really divulge about that. But they 26,000 more visitors than they had combined before, and it's only in its first month out. So, I mean, I do agree there are a lot of issues with cannibalization, and being able to rank 3 times is
who cares?
Less than compared.
I'd rather have 3 pages ranking than 2 or 1. I don't care what position they are. You have more chances.
As long as the orders come into my account, yeah.
And cannibalization is only a problem if you work at Moz.
Yeah. Only Moz would think that cannibalization is a problem.
Unless
where that stupidity originated.
Unless you live in the jungle and you hear strange theater music at night.
Yeah. That's real cannibalization.
When they
I do think it's fair to say that a lot of technical SEO stuff is only going to be indirectly affecting any rankings, but certainly indexing almost always is going to have an impact on indexing and or crawl. But there's even some of it that will affect your ranking ability.
There's what I've found is the difference between many years ago and now is you have to do a bunch of stuff to get to see actual, real movement.
Yeah, there's no more big bang for the buck
because the algorithm has gotten so complicated.
Yeah, it used to be you could do one thing and see some significant impact from it. Now you got to do 37 things to see any impact almost.
Get one link
Very
and
true.
change a title a little bit, and you could actually move a ranking in the past. But anymore, it's like you
Oh.
said, that and 37 other things gets it to move.
Yeah. Bill just wrote a great piece on content.
I
You
am
should say semantic content. Good. Sorry.
sorry about that. I am encouraged to see, Bill, that by hanging out with us now, you're going to stop being seen as a noob. That's good. I'm sure glad I wasn't in that thread. I'd have probably gotten banned for a month.
Well, if there was anybody much reading it, they would have said something, I'm sure. Like, you realize who you're talking to? Go do a search on Google.
I've seen some threads like that on Facebook where some noob will pop up and say, "You don't know what you're talking about," to somebody that's been doing it for 25 years, and 5 people will jump in there. "You need to back up and shut up, son."
Yeah, go do a search on Google before you start calling people noobs.
Yeah, when you get to page 7 of his results, you'll know you might be talking to somebody who's been around a while.
He's probably reading your blog as information anyway. Like, honestly, most likely he's reading SEO by the Sea. Probably not completely all of it.
That's
but,
probably
you know,
it. You know,
If your
that's
name
a
was
top
Patel
answer.
now,
Who doesn't really know much.
yeah, this is some.
your problem was your name wasn't Patel, Bill.
My problem was I was talking to somebody who didn't know the difference between keyword density and keyword frequency.
Yeah, that too.
I saw that thread.
This is somebody who's telling me I don't understand SEO. It's like information retrieval. Look it up. Buy a dictionary. You need one.
I retreated all that stuff about keyword frequency versus density. Density is for people who are dense, and that's the way I remember it. Like you don't need to worry about keyword unless it's.
I'm not making up the meanings of these words. They don't mean the same thing. I don't care about semantics. If you're using the word semantics to mean it doesn't mean jack shit. That's the way some people treat semantics. I'm saying learn about information retrieval. Don't be a dumbass all your life.
I love seeing you get wound up, Bill.
Yeah.
Oh, Lordy.
I mean, the one that the Manning, the guy who became head of Google, wrote a book on information retrieval. The first chapter is on inverted indexes. And all SEOs should know what an inverted index is. I remember Matt Cutts did a blog post or did a librarian newsletter where he explained to them how inverted indexes work. And it was one of the best SEO training lessons most SEOs came across.
No, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Like inverted index is pretty much something you need to know if you're doing this. You did a great post on it recently.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just need to let Bill's posts age a little bit so I can spin him and release his mind.
Oh, that's funny.
So the guy's doing the ones on Reasonable Surfer model. I've lost my mind to them already.
There's a new type of CSS out for Core Web Vitals, I've heard.
A new type
Well,
of
it's in the Chrome browser.
That's what it is, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
More nonsense.
So do you only see it if you're using the Chrome browser?
Pardon me?
Do you only see that CSS if you're using the Chrome browser?
Yeah, I guess so. Or that's the only place that'll speed it up. I didn't read too much on it, just that, you know, it's in Chrome browser and it's going to speed up your site a little bit.
The Chrome browser also will add alt text to images. It'll look at the image, describe what's actually in the image, and write something up that can be used with assistive technologies.
Right.
So people with visual problems, they can use a Chrome
Well, I
browser.
hope they do a better job on that than they do on rewriting titles.
Yeah, it's just, you know, there was a convo yesterday about how Google likes to mandate certain practices that are counter to the accessibility standards. Okay, and it's interesting to me how they will say that they're supportive of accessibility in this regard, yet totally piss on the entire standard in another regard.
Well, look at this. First, they come and say, make your pages faster. Then they come and say, oh, put SSL on them now. One's counterproductive to the other.
They spent a couple years teaching SEOs how to use pagination markup, preview and next attributes, and then one day come out with the statement saying attribution markup. We haven't used that in a couple of years.
Yeah, we don't support that anymore. Sorry.
No, I've always said that when Google releases these things, it's simply for us to manually train their algorithm. That's all they're interested in.
9 times out of 10, yeah.
Or save them money.
No, that's the main goal of everything Google does. Make money, save money. If there's no getting in that, there's no point to it.
Well, that's like, to me, Google Plus was always intended to basically be a data harvesting machine. They wanted to see all your connections, and that's all it was really any good to them for, was just to harvest data. And it worked. And when it stopped being of any value to them, and they had enough in their database to get the value out of it they wanted, they shut some of it down. Save those machine cycles. Yeah.
And Google AMP was a purposeful limitation of HTML and JavaScript. Let's simplify it so everything runs quicker.
This came back from a search.
Your roommate is talking to you, Billy.
Oh, you must be new to search.
I think AMP has a future still, just because Google's invested so much in it, but I honestly don't see very much benefit outside of news sites using it.
No, I don't think AMP is going to stick around. I suspect that'll be something else they'll abandon before long.
They might call it something else, but it'll still be just a quicker way of serving content, hopefully by the same URL for mobile sites. But if it changes the theme and everything like it does now, it might not be around. You're right.
It's a bullshit platform to develop on. It'll never go anywhere.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're a new site, it's worthless.
For any site, I tried to build it from scratch, and you can't make it look like even a WordPress site. The nav bars are all fucky and, excuse me, not very pleasant to work with. It won't do half the stuff you want it to. It's bullshit.
Yeah,
it's so bad I decided to rework WordPress, then try and start over with AMP.
So we're not going to rename this Bill and Amon's Bogus Hangout group to the AMP fan club.
No, not in my entire years.
Bill and Amon's get amped.
Well, I mean, if we start becoming like, PV and Marshall fanatics, I could be fine with amps. But that's about the only I'm interested in.
Oh, now I get what you're saying, Steve. Those are guitar amps.
He likes Gorilla amps too. Gorilla, they're a small company. They made crappy amps, but
Yeah.
Macintosh amps. How about that? They're good. So speaking of Apple, different app, Macintosh. Apple, if anyone has an iPhone,
Yeah, but like the other one, it was overpriced for what you were getting too. So they had
But
that.
there was a huge hack. Everyone that has a iPhone that hasn't been updated since yesterday, please update it because it is very vulnerable to being, completely and totally hacked.
Oh my, don't tell me that. I've lost no reason to live. iPhone has security.
I was just going to send you one to try to make you love it, but it was,
I'll
and
never
harvest
own
your
an
information.
iPhone. I'd rather have no phone than an iPhone or anything. Apple.
The real risk with this Apple thing is that it's a no-click. I mean, they can just broadcast it, and if you haven't been updated, you'll get infected.
Yeah, I updated right yesterday everything, and there was such a long wait time to download because everyone was doing it at once.
It's a no-click virus.
No click whatsoever required.
It's really serious. If anyone that Apple laptops, desktops, phones, it affects all of them.
It's iOS vulnerability, but it's zero interaction whatsoever. They put it out there. You got the device, you're going to get infected.
But iOS works on, or iMessages is the portal, and iMessages works on the laptops now too, and desktops. So it's actually all Apple devices. So
So it's a security problem where you don't even have to click on something, Doc.
Exactly.
It's a bad one.
Yeah, it's really a vicious one.
That's really bad. If someone can just send you shit and it screw up your phone, that's bad.
Well, I mean, and just think about how many different avenues there are to send you stuff. Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Skype. I mean, and emails. I mean, you don't have to be even in a particular portal. If they can get it to you by any channel whatsoever, and you're on an Apple device, and you're not updated, you're screwed to the wall.
They're all synced probably too. Sync the computer and the phone and everything. It affects everything.
So they get one, you get all six. Yeah.
Lovely.
It's pretty brutal. Like I was happy to see it and update for an hour last night on my phone and then my computer. It was a blast. But like at the same time, to any Apple users watching the show, I'm going to put this in the comments. This is a link to an article on it that shows just how serious it is. But yeah, it's nasty stuff, and it happens to Windows, happens to have Macs. Macs are definitely not immune to viruses like people think. It's a computer like anything else, and unfortunately can and will be hacked.
I think a lot of the fame that Mac supposedly had for being safer against hacks was not so much the quality of their software as it was hackers are going to go after the biggest target. And PCs were the biggest killing field to attack.
100%. Yeah, and that's sort of changed recently. Or not recently, over the past 5-10 years since Intel. And iPhones, honestly, they're about half of the market for mobile, so they're a huge target. But yeah, this one's a nasty one.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the last security hack I can think of on this scale, and I could be speaking very incorrectly, would be Equifax. Well, that's much more serious actually, but it was one of those things that gives everything you've got. So most phone users have their social somewhere on their phone, sadly. So, I've never owned an Android device. Do you guys find them to be pretty reliable?
I won't own it.
Yeah.
I've never owned an iPhone, period.
And iPhone
Stare
was the
at it.
only
Look
phone
at
I
it.
ever had. But yeah, there you go. But
See?
it's the only Apple device I have. My wife's got an iPad, and we all have iPhones. Never had an Android, but I will not own a desktop Mac.
I have desktop and laptop Macs, so I just got used. So I started using. So you use what you get used to, and then you get sucked in. But I do agree with some of the people that don't like Macs for quite a few reasons. I'm in the same camp. I have a Mac Pro desktop that's literally 2 feet tall, and they come up with a new one that's the size of a trash can. It looks like a trash can, and you can't change anything. You can't swap hard drives.
I inherited a Mac from my sister, and I
Yeah.
wanted to fix it and upgrade it. And
Nope.
You can't.
Mac's laws against repair made it impossible for me to do that. I couldn't buy a $14 floppy drive and install it in the computer.
Right.
Steve Jobs wanted complete control, end-to-end control of everything. It's pretty true.
It's a sucker's game. Anybody who buys that stuff they're suckers. Period.
I will say this: if you could buy a Mac Pro now, 2019 or earlier, you can actually update the.
You can see the game that Apple's playing with all the customers. They come out with a new computer. It needs new connectors. They want billions of dollars in new connectors. We need a lightning cable. No, we need a USB-C cable. It's like
It gets expensive.
How much are they going to milk the world?
Well, like
the
today,
last desktop I bought, I walked out of $10,500 when I walked out of the store, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Like, I purchased it. It's been a great machine, but don't get me wrong. Like, what I could have gotten for a PC, geez.
Could have bought 4 servers for that much.
Yeah.
Real servers too, big ones.
Oh, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, but I will say that if you buy a Mac Pro, buy the base one, because you can upgrade them. And OWC is a good company for upgrades. If you have an older Mac computer, you can go there and they have workarounds. So if you do need to upgrade those parts, you can get them cheaper and you can upgrade them, which is nice.
For about the first 10 years that I was in SEO, you couldn't get any software for Mac for SEO. None whatsoever.
well, most of the stuff, if you were used to using a lot of the PC-based software, initially there was no compatibility whatsoever. Back before you could run any Windows on a Mac, you were hard pressed to find anything that would work on a Mac that you didn't have to buy directly from Apple. To your point, Bill,
I joined an agency, and they gave me a MacBook.
What am I supposed to do?
Or MacBook.
So I was bringing my Windows laptop into work every day and putting it next to my MacBook. I'd run a program on the Windows computer, like a GNU Link sleuth, and then I'd have to try to do the same thing with the Mac. So I was finding some of the programs like Integrity was a
Mac
broken link finder. Yeah.
Yep. And
to your point on
fraud came out, and I
connectors?
was like, yes, No. No, you're exactly right. Apple, when they ran PowerBooks instead of MacBooks, they were running PowerPC processors. When I was in college, I was actually in a CS class trying to use a virtual machine to keep up with everyone that's on PCs. I thought I could do this correctly, and the thing was like 20% the speed of regular, it was Microsoft Windows Virtual for PowerPC processor, and it was brutally slow. Finally switched over to Levitro at the end, but then Apple came out with Intel processors, and turns out they've been using them for 25 years, and now they have their own processor. But
Bill, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that Intel thing changed their whole stratosphere of their machines. I don't think that they would have sold as many laptops or desktops or anything without that Intel ability to run PC software seamlessly via boot camp.
Bill, to your point about the game that they play with their connectors, about 2 hours ago, I was watching they did their new product release presentation today, and they came out with the new iPad and the iPad Mini and the new iPhone 13 and and the Max and the Super Pro and all this. And guess who is now all of a sudden, if you've got the old new cables, now you're going to have to go to USB-C because that's the only
There's
connector.
no more Lightning.
They're all UBC connectors. So if you don't have USB-C cable, so if you went out and bought an external drive for your MacBook so that you could run a floppy, or you went out and bought a Lightning so that you could run your camera, you're going to have to buy a whole new cable now.
Well, actually, Apple Mac laptops have been running Thunderbolt 3, which is USB-C, same thing as USB-C, for, I want to say, almost 5 years now. 4 or 5 years. But yeah, you're right.
But not only.
Not only. Not only some of the MacBook Airs and stuff like that had a regular USB, and they cut that entirely.
They don't have them anymore. According to the announcement today, everything's going to go it's going to be to a C portal. So
yeah, it makes sense for them to do now because they call it Thunderbolt. It's USB 4 as well. This type of connector, and then this is Lightning for your phone. But it'll probably look like 2 of these for your phone now, which, hey, I see Angie says S20s are USB-C 2 charging in earphones. Okay, so yeah, I charge my computer with the USB-C cable and or Thunderbolt cable, whatever they call it, and the only difference is the speed of what you can transfer over the cable. So my hard drive that I have connected to it is able to do 40 gigabits per second, something like that, in theory, the cable. But yeah, you're right. They change it up all the time, and it is a ripoff.
Yeah, they obviously, once you have a captive audience, you certainly don't want to open the gate and let them go.
And they charge those other companies to have their logo on there to say Apple certified, and say if your warranty's gone, if you charge your phone once with a non-certified cable.
Well, plus the fact, to go and pay $80 for a cable that anybody else sells for $12, it doesn't make a lot of financial sense to me.
Yeah, the people at the Apple store tend to charge lots for those cables.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They think they're selling to the American government. The hammer that costs $500, that kind of thing.
$6,000 toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've heard the new iPhone 13 is not hacked, from what I understand. That's the plus. That's a good reason to buy. No, it's a joke, but
that's an adder. You have to pay extra for that.
You do actually, because you have to buy that extra $700 or something. But yeah,
iPhone only has 12% of the market.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
The highest anyone has is 19%. That's Samsung.
So you're talking about non-Android. So Android.
No, I'm talking about smartphones in general.
But most smartphones.
43% of them. aren't even, they just say all others, 43%.
Wow, there's that many Windows phones and like Blackberries out there still.
Yeah, well, there's that many phones on the market.
That's probably got to be going by brand, not by technology. Because an awful lot of those brands are running Android technology.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
They're
by
like-
brand. If it was by OS, it'd be Android by a long shot.
Yeah.
That's amazing. If they're dominated by that much, that's a huge amount.
No, it's just a fragmented market. Like nobody has very much.
It's okay. Apple finds ways of making money no matter how they go.
Oh,
charge
for
Google,
sure.
charge Google $15 billion to be the search engine.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember the
mean-
Bing iPhones.
It was 2 years ago. They were charging Apple $1 billion to be their search engine. Now it's
That's
15.
global too, not America. It's probably higher in the U.S.
Right. It's 15 overall now. Before it was $1 billion. Now it's 15 billion.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense. It gives Google a lot bigger market share.
Well, as long as Google's their search engine, I mean, Apple's working on replacing them.
Yeah, and they might do it. It seems like. I mean, from what I've used Spotlight a lot, and for finding files on my phone, and it's great for that. But for finding web things, it can only find my web history. So if I've gone to example.com, it can show me that I went to all the pages on that. But if it can find that.
Do you use Apple Maps?
Yep.
That had problems when it first started too.
It was a nightmare when it first came out. It was a nightmare. The only reason I use it now is for non-critical things. I'll use Google Maps instead for most things, but it just integrates with everything. So if somebody sends you a message, it'll show up in Apple Maps. You just click it. Just ease of use, and it's gotten pretty good. It was awful. It was so awful when it first came out. It was like Bing Maps twice as bad as it was sad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot different in the U.S. Apple has 39%.
That makes sense to me.
And
every phone I
Samsung
see
28, LG 11.
So yeah, 40% of the market almost makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting how many queries are being done on mobile devices. And one thing where Apple iPhone does shine is JavaScript processing. It is quick at that. For some reason, their processors are slightly quicker at processing phasing JavaScript than some of the Androids that I've seen. But but do you guys find that having an Android device gives you a better insight into Google as an SEO?
Yeah.
No.
Doesn't matter any device.
So I'm not sure it makes a difference as to how well or poorly we rank.
Yeah, no, not that. Just yeah. Like if I could go back to 2 Campbell soup cans and a string, I would do it. But I think the world's changed, unfortunately.
I think both Android and Apple use federated machine learning anyway. So they look at how you interact with your computer, with your search engine on your phone. They collect that information, they upload it to the cloud, they aggregate it with other phone users' information, and then they mix that stuff up and download it back to your phone in the morning.
Yep. And everyone's saying that Apple is so secure. Look at their iCloud default statement. They say none of that is actually covered under it. So that's their cloud, their syncing system. So it's a mirror of your phone. I mean, they play the privacy card, but not if you have a iCloud account, which comes with every phone
Yeah.
by default. So
Most Google patents these days include by default a section on personally identifiable information. Now Google's not collecting it.
I
yeah,
don't like you to
Apple's
tell me where my phone is half the time. More often than not, I'm like, one of those near me searches, and it's like Arkansas. It's like, no.
It's okay. I had to go to CVS the other day to find a friend's phone because she'd left it there. And she wasn't sure whether or not she could use the Where's My iPhone app. Except it was saying it was there.
Oh, that's a good indication.
And I go to get it, and they say, "Is this the phone?" I said, "It's got my name on the front of it, right?" She looked, and it did, because I was the last person to call.
Yeah.
It said last caller, Bill Slosky.
And you can even go in on the computer and type like a message like, this device is lost, please return to your name. It's nice of them to actually check instead of just hand over the device to somebody. Might just be going store to store. Hey, you got a phone back there? I lost mine. So none of the telecom companies, my fiance worked at Verizon. They don't do anything if a phone's stolen. They don't care.
No. Why? There's a chance to sell you another one.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they want your trade-ins to get your used ones off the street so you don't sell them or give them to your friends or something. So, what do you think of Core Web Vitals overall between a ranking above 90 and actually having like poor as a score, like something in the 20s? Do you think it's just going to affect conversion?
On all of my metrics like that are provided, Core Web Vitals and all this other stuff, my only goal is and has ever been to be better and faster than my competitors. I could care less what the score is. If my score is 40 and my competitors are 20, I'm good. I'm moving on to the next thing. And so I don't know. I have a hard time getting excited about these kinds of issues.
I think from the customer standpoint, from the user standpoint, the one that I'm most concerned about, aside from something that takes 15 seconds to even load the home page, is the CLS, because that is a major thing. When you're trying to click on something, you click on the wrong link, or you got to try 3 times because it keeps shifting on you. That pisses people off, and that piss off stays with them. They're not going to just go find someplace else. They're going to mentally blackball your site. They're never going to come back.
A rage click where people just
Exactly. It's just that drives me up a tree. And like one of the things, iPhone. One of my things is when I go downstairs, we have a Wi-Fi repeater downstairs at the bar that I have to log into that with my iPhone because I'm 4 concrete floors and walls away. My other repeater is here at my desk. I'll lose my signal entirely when I'm sitting there at the bar. So I have to shift to that down. Well, every time I go to pull up settings, it pops up, it shows me Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and I get ready to click on something, and it jumps down one, and I go into Bluetooth instead of Wi-Fi.
Oh, and yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The phone almost goes sailing across the dining room because But it's just, that kind of stuff really ticks users off. So I worry about the CLS more than all the rest of it in terms of users.
What kills me is
CLS
is an issue for search and mobile and all this stuff. Yet on the other side of the Google coin, when it comes to like their game platform, they build that into games so that they intentionally move the close this ad button around. I mean, you can't play a game on an Android device, and I don't know about iPhone because I don't have one, but they will come up with the in-game ad, and it'll say, well, we'll click here. You go to click here, and all it does is take you to install the program. And a lot of times it'll start installing, and you have to try to cancel out. It's like, because no, I didn't want that. Because they allow the advertisers to make their exit X's part of the ad that takes you to the install. And it's like, okay, so on one hand, you're telling me I can't do all these things because it might move and it's a bad experience. But on the other hand, you're encouraging things to move, so I will click and it will generate ad revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like our mothers and fathers. Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
Yep.
And Google adds on that it's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
With the codicil, but we won't give you either.
I think when it comes to core web vitals, I think it's going to be a lot like how the HTTPS was, where I had one that was a slow site, didn't do anything for 6 months, continually kept losing rankings until finally I had to do something, and that was the only thing I could think of doing.
I've seen legitimately huge increases in traffic and bigger increases in conversions.
Of course, anything that changes the user experience can negatively or positively affect conversion. That's
but if you have a faster whatever, that generally helps.
If your page downloads faster, that's a better user experience. You're more liable to sell something.
Yep.
So all that stuff is, whether you're doing it you should do it for your clients regardless, because it doesn't just affect rankings, it affects conversion, especially CLS. People who don't really understand the web see things moving all over the place. They back out because they're scared. They wonder what the fuck's going on.
You watch the Hotjar videos of the rage clicks and the U-turns and stuff, where people just click on the same thing over and over again. And you can imagine, you can feel their anger, and they do it 20 times, and then you're like, oh man, this person's pissed. Make this thing bigger, make more sense. I couldn't agree with you more. So Core Web Vitals does serve a purpose of having like the CSS through a critical path, which generally helps with that, with things moving on the screen. And also, people should realize that they have to actually put the sizes on their photographs. I don't know how many sites I've seen without the correct sizes on the images, and I don't get it. Like, I mean, it's something you need to do to keep things from moving around.
If you're using WordPress, it doesn't tell you that. It doesn't tell you that there's no width, there's no alt, whatever. That's one of the things that WordPress does. So if you leave the alt text empty, guess what? It puts in empty alt.
Right. Yeah. It just gives you the two. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's another technical thing that Google is talking about. It makes a difference. It's a user experience thing.
Well, I read something the other day, and I'm not sure if it's true or not. I read something the other day that if you like you say, like if it's a decorative, just a horizontal bar, for instance, you don't have to have an alt attribute, but it'll always put in the double quotation mark. I read something that said that it's got to be there. If you don't have it, okay, so that's true. I meant to go look that up and verify that.
For most design elements, Doc, the images you do double quotes, empty.
Yeah. And WordPress does that automatically. If you don't put in an alt attribute, it's going to go ahead and put that empty. But I had not seen it said before that would break it if that empty attribute wasn't there. And I had meant to go verify it and never got around to it. Interesting.
Yeah, if you look too on featured images, they don't put the width and height in it either.
Yeah, it's the main.
Yeah.
Main is they basically resize the images.
They're going by
And then-
percentage, I would imagine, no?
Yeah, but then they actually chop them up into thumbnails, and they're all different sizes based on your theme, and they'll give a 500 by 500, for example. And the main image that might be your top image across the site will just be the regular URL without any changes made to it by WordPress in some cases. But I've seen big changes on all sorts of platforms by adding width and height.
Well,
It's
if
a
you
small thing,
don't
but it's a
put
good thing.
width and height on an image, it slows it down considerably.
And swap
Same
on
with,
fonts. Makes a
on your divs. If you don't put a width and height on them, that slows down too, because it's got to have that to map the page for
Yeah,
render
it's a computer trying to compute. If you give it the information, it'll do
on
it
the
faster.
browser. In the rendering, renders that part first. It starts by basically just setting up each block, then fills
Yeah.
in the text and stuff later.
Well, that's one thing about the font swap that has been pretty helpful. If you put that in the style sheet, it will actually help your Google fonts and your local fonts. When it says it doesn't show.
Doesn't help. Local fonts won't load any faster off your own system. There's no way to speed that up. But Google fonts are not cacheable.
Right. That's why local
They aren't
is
cached by the browser.
Well,
That's so
plus,
Google can track everywhere where they're called.
well, plus
Exactly.
the fact that there's always some lag in because there's a separate call required
Just
for
slow
Google
it
fonts.
up.
Yeah.
If
Exactly.
you check
yeah, you go into a different
your
domain.
if you check the waterfall, the slowest pieces always
Always
come.
Google fonts.
Always.
Yep.
Or some third-party JavaScript stuff, but yeah.
Always
Most nice.
Google.
I
Oh,
very
yeah.
rarely see anything unless it's something broken. I don't recall seeing anything that's slower than Google.
That's
Yeah.
right. Especially when you're dumb enough to put analytics in the head.
Okay,
Tag
now we're not
managers
winding
as
Bill
well.
up. Now it's time to crank up Terry a little bit.
Oh, that's a pet peeve because that's a recommendation by Google that you put it in the head. And it's actually the worst way you can do it because it skews
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
And your page
But they-
runs much faster when it's in body.
That's right. It doesn't block rendering when it's in at the end of the page.
Yeah, it's a big ball of JavaScript, and it shouldn't be at the header anyway.
All off the site that takes a while to come. Even though they say it's asynchronous, apparently
Yeah.
it's not.
Well, it's just not effective. Yeah. So how many people use a browser other than Chrome?
I use Brave.
I use IE exclusively. All I,
I
use
use
Chrome.
Safari
Firefox
once
for
in a
years.
while.
That's it.
I used Firefox yesterday for the first time in about 3 months.
I use Firefox
well-
for years. What was
Every
that
time
one,
I
Terry?
open
Cache initiative.
Firefox up, I have to update it.
Hey,
That's how
Terry,
often
remember,
I use it.
remember when we played with Flock, Terry?
With what?
Flock?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That got to be 10 years ago or so.
Oh,
that
that
was
was
a good
quite a while ago.
That was a nice little browser. Unfortunate that it disappeared, but I'm using
There's
Brave
a
now.
few
Which,
that came out that had some nice qualities, but
Was
Yeah.
was Flock the social browser?
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it integrated all your different social media sites and whatnot.
So
but
you
it
had
was
that
fairly
quick,
lightweight too. It wasn't a lot of bloat in it.
you had that quick link to spin.
Yeah, yeah. And you could add all your little icons for the oh shit, what some of them, Discover and but yeah, all the little sharing piss ants that were out there.
Was that the one that Andresen was working on?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think I had that browser for a couple of months.
Yeah, I used it for a little bit too when I first started doing social.
Yep. Now I'm using Brave, which is Chrome based, but like Steve and I, when we were putting on our conference, we found something that I was unaware of.
It's not a Disney movie.
No.
No.
The ViewStel platform we were using for the conference works best on Chrome, okay? But it works not at all on Brave, which is supposedly Chrome-based. It works not at all on Firefox or Edge. I didn't try IE6, Terry. Sorry.
Oh, I retired that finally. I'm using Edge.
But I mean, basically, they say it works best on Chrome. Well, what they should be saying is it doesn't work on a damn thing except Chrome.
And what's weird is the stuff that didn't work were simple buttons.
Yeah. You couldn't, there'd be a button there and you mouse over it and it would show that it was clickable. You know, your cursor would convert to a hand, you know, to a finger, but you click on it and nothing happens until you use Chrome. Then it worked fine. How do you manage to break something like that? You know, that's like special effort.
The transform worked, but the unclick didn't.
Yeah. I mean, that took extra effort on some developers' part.
Well, and of course, you know, 20 minutes before the show, we're screaming at the developers to make the emails go out that they said were working just fine 24, 48, 72 hours before the conference. They're like, oh, yeah, that all works. And then they find out half an hour before the show that, no, it didn't, and nobody's gotten their emails. It's like, thanks, guys. That's really appreciated. And poor Zara, she got hers, got lost to ether because Doc can't type.
That was a technical glitch. That wasn't human.
Yeah, technical glitches. Doc can't type.
That wasn't a typing issue. That was a copy-paste issue.
Yeah. Overall, I like the platform a lot.
Yeah, I did too.
And I think,
and I definitely like the customer service.
Yeah, and I think it would work significantly better if I had like real internet. But you know, for what we had to do, I thought it was pretty sweet.
Yep. Sweet enough that I'm certainly thinking that they're going to be a leading competitor for next year if we do a hybrid.
Yeah.
So I have a question for everyone. What advice would you give to new SEOs?
Run.
Don't hide.
It's another profession.
Pick something that's a trade that you can build with your hands.
There you go. That you have some control over that way.
Yep.
Really?
Someone who loves golf would like SEO. It's just as frustrating.
I love golf, yeah, and I wonder why I do it for fun.
It's just as frustrating as SEO.
Yeah, you throw your clubs in the ocean, you're like, yeah, I paid for this round. I can understand that, especially algorithm changes that just sweep across certain sites.
It's not even that, but I mean, how do you learn SEO? I mean, the best way to learn is to do it, but you can't learn on client projects. And if you don't have anything of value to offer the world, you can't learn on your own projects because you have nothing of value to offer anyway. What are you gonna rank for? So then you're stuck on the forums and on the Facebook groups going, how do I do this? And if you're lucky,
and then you got me answering you.
Yeah, well, and that's if you're lucky. And if you're not lucky, you've got somebody like me answering you. I may or may not have a bad habit of answering really stupid questions with really long, complex, sound legitimate.
So I'm admin at Creative Site Forums, and some guy just joined the group, just joined the forum. He picked his name, SEO expert. It was available, and his first question is, "How does this page rank thing work again?" And his second question is,
tricky.
"How do I talk to my first client?"
English,
With
most
your
likely, if they're
yapper.
speaking it.
Yeah.
The same
Well,
language they're using.
At the other end of that spectrum, Darren Babbitt, who is legitimately really OG when it comes to SEO, and legitimately earned the name SE Guru, posted on Facebook wanting to know if any of the old people were still around and what they were doing.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
it was kind of amazing how early so many of us got our start, and we're kind of still loosely attached to the business, maybe not as directly as we once were, but it was just kind of an interesting funnel how everybody in the late 90s came on and went, oh, this is fun. And then in the early 2005s, 2010s, it's like, oh, this isn't so much fun anymore.
Yeah.
A lot more work recently, but definitely still fun.
Yeah. It's a shame because we're going to have to start charging clients more.
I do remember going to an SEO forum in the late 90s in the middle of a fight over the perfect keyword density for a certain niche.
That was
It's 5.6, man.
I didn't call a single person a dumbass, and I backed out quietly.
we used to see that all the time, like at Web Pro News and all that. And
Yep.
my standard response became at least one. You must have at least one. After that,
Is it the title of your page?
it's just the barrier to entry into the business is so low. And
Fiverr.
a lot of the people who aren't very good at SEO are very good at sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you could be not very good at SEO, take a 10 grand a month client for 3 months, do nothing, and tell them, Google did it. I can't, there's nothing I can do about it. Sorry. And move on. And the clients no more informed than they were before, but they're just $30,000 to the poor.
You're probably the third guy who's done that to.
Yeah. And I know people who, back in the day, that was their business model. They didn't care if they succeeded or not. Their goal was to get somebody on a 6-month contract, run the contract, and if they re-upped, great. If not, we already got 4 more in the funnel. Continue on.
So they're turning and burning the sites. They're turning and burning clients.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So I got interested in SEO because I was taking a leadership workshop. It was like 6 months of leadership stuff. And then one of the components was SEO. And it was very old school. And I was just horrified. I was like, I don't think like this. Who would want to read this stuff? This can't be the right answer. And so I Googled SEO, and two things came up. One was Nodex 3, if anybody remembers that, with Lee, and the other was David Amerland. And I started talking to David Amerland because I just couldn't go with this unrealistic approach to theoretically communicating with people, which was non-communication. Anyway, that's how I got started.
I mean, content is still king. Well, the robots.txt file is king, sorry. But
well, there was just a discussion, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, where we were talking about, I don't remember who started, but we were talking about it's not just content. It's the right content for your audience, the right content.
Right, exactly.
Is it the right niche? Are you too deep, not deep enough? I mean, it's got to be so much more than I need somebody to write about water heaters. I need somebody to write something that a customer is going to ask.
Mhm.
From the others, yes, that's exactly right. And so from the other side, you know, when somebody's looking for a writer and they say, I need somebody to write about water heaters, and here are the 10 keywords I want you to use. And I'm like,
No,
no,
not going to happen. And that's why. Well, I mean, we hired Doc and his group for most of all of our content these days. And all I do is give them a title and 3 or 4 reference links and tell them this is the direction we want to go. And I just, you know, when it's done, send it back to me. I don't care about the keywords. I don't care about the density. I don't. I will manage all the internal links. You know, any internal linking I need to do or whatever, I'll take care of all of that. I had another client. I had a client who's been paying another content person for 3 years now to update his blog twice a month. And at the bottom of every single blog post, they put a little picture that says, click here to see the next the upcoming classes. And in 3 years, that banner has never been clickable. And I have complained endlessly. And for a while, I was going in there and fixing it. And I find that I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm out. And we just recently managed to get her removed and take over the SEO side of their stuff as well as their PPC. So it's just frustrating.
So Doc's a good writer.
Well, not Doc so much, but
Doc hires good writers.
I hire good writers. Yeah, I don't do much writing anymore. Don't have the time or the inclination, really.
He's mostly the final check editor.
Yeah, I do the final editing.
He cashes the checks. Don't let him.
And I do the formatting too.
What do you guys think about internal linking? As far as that's one technical SEO thing that definitely works.
Important.
Love it.
Definitely.
Very important.
Jenny Hallis had a very good presentation on internal linking on Deep SEO conference just a couple days ago.
yeah.
So, and for those of you who missed the conference, you don't get to see the videos for another 6 months. So, sorry to tease you.
What if you know somebody that put on the conference really well?
Then you're fucked.
Do you have a fair to good supply of bourbon and or cigars?
Or both.
Well, both is a plus. And bear in mind the fact that there were 16 sessions, so you need to stock up.
It was my fault. Bill told me right before that I tried to buy it and I was too late. A recommendation: leave the thing on so you can purchase no matter how late it is. Just tell them that they're this many minutes in.
There was a technical reason for that, and the technical reason was we were doing our own credit card processing versus letting the platform do it. And so anybody who bought from us, we had to send them the information so they could manually add them. And we won't do that next year. If we stay with ViewStub, we will be 100%. If you're going to be virtual, it will all go through them, and it will cut out a whole bunch of headaches on our end.
Yep.
But the people who are actually going to attend the event live in person will purchase on our website.
What if we just want to fish?
Show up.
That's a totally separate order.
Yep. You're just.
I think.
And the trip from the San Diego airport to Tijuana isn't that far.
No, it's really
Very
good.
close.
It's about a 15-minute drive with moderate traffic.
Yeah.
When
I'd have to come by Colombia.
I love flying. I love flying into San Diego and actually asking the driver, hey, take me over the border.
Actually,
They
Cuba.
always give me the strangest sight.
Actually, there's a section at the San Diego airport. There's a section of the taxi waiting area where the taxis that will drive you across into Tijuana line up. So if you want to go across into Mexico, you can actually grab one of those cabs, and you won't have to get off the cab at all. They'll drive you right across the line.
Oh, that's good to know.
This requires special permitting, so they don't all do it.
This is not like Ubers and Lyfts. It's taxis.
No, even some Uber drivers won't do it. But what you can do is if you try to book an Uber or a cab, you just say you want to go to the Palacio Municipal in Tijuana, and they'll line you up with a taxi or an Uber that will cross you across.
That's cool. Yeah.
The other thing
How
to
long
think
did you
about
get through the border?
Well, like for instance, if you wanted to take, the border from the San Diego airport is about a 15 to 20-minute drive. Okay.
But the wait is pretty short.
Oh, going across into Tijuana is usually non-existent. It's like 5:30 in the evening when you got an awful lot of workers in the U.S. going back to Tijuana. Then you might spend a half hour, 45 minutes. But it's the northbound line that gets a lot more backed up, because the customs inspectors, immigration customs inspectors for the U.S. they want to talk to everybody. Whereas the Mexican process, unless they see a pickup with darkened windows on the car or a pickup full of boxes, then they automatically signal you get a red light, and that means you go into secondary for inspection. Everybody else gets a green light, and you just swerve around and keep on driving. So it flows a lot quicker. But the thing is, if you could catch a Uber driver on the U.S. side within spitting distance of the border, and you tell him you want to go to destination A in Tijuana, he might tell you it's $25. Whereas if you walk across the border, pick up a Uber driver there to the same destination A, it's going to be $6 because they charge a lot less down here. So if you can get to the border and cross the border and then pick up, like for instance, a taxi drive from the border to Ensenada is about $25, whereas from the north side of the border down to Ensenada would be about $125, because your rates are a lot different.
Well, I hate to say this, but we're past the top of the hour, so we're gonna have to call it a day. Thank you for joining us. Take care. Good to see you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye.